An author and educator says he has some advice that every parent should hear. This comes in the wake of the abuse trial of former Olympic doctor Larry Nassar and other allegations of sexual misconduct.
And Cortland Jones says there are ways that parents can better protect their children. He's joining us now to talk about that and his book your book that you have out. Tell us first off, what was your reaction when you heard about these sexual molestation charges and the huge number of young women that were impacted?
Well, honestly, it was impactful on a personal level because I myself am both a victim and a survivor of child sexual abuse. So I feel for me, it was very impactful. It took a moment to really take in what was happening. Even as I was watching the trial, a lot of emotion came up for myself, just the hurt that I went through myself as a victim, and just feeling the empathic compassion for those who also going through the trial, what they went through.
Now, why do you think the victims stayed so silent for so many years? A lot of times people are curious about that aspect of it, and since you are a victim at one point, and we'll talk about that in a second, but yeah, why do people stay silent so long?
Not being able to speak for others, I would say in my situation, just not being confident or secure that sharing this information in some way is going to be beneficial to me as the victim. How will people respond or react to what I'm about to say? Do I feel safe in sharing it, first of all? And then what's the next step? There's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen once I come forward. And then depending on if the person feels like there was something that they said or did to kind of create the situation, the shame associated with that. So then who can I go to, who can I talk to about this particular situation where I'm going to feel affirmed or embraced or validated in sharing the information.
And we just saw a moment ago the book that you wrote, Out of the Shadow?
Out of the Darkness, A Journey into the Marvelous Light.
And tell us a little bit about your particular case, and I assume that this book was very healing for you.
Yes, it was. In fact, the title itself was my own personal journey of coming out of the shadows, of being able to communicate that I myself was a victim. It happened at 4 years old, but it took 20 years before I actually shared anything. When I surrendered my life to Jesus Christ, that's when I had the boldness and the courage to want to talk about it at a men's retreat. But also during that time as an educator, there were students who came to me to share their stories. And for the first time, I was able to kind of connect and relate to what it was like for me as a child to have gone through that. And so that became then the motivation to put my story on paper. So in the same way I felt empowered through listening to children talk about their situations, I wanted to do the same for others. So in 2014, the book was published, but it was a 9-year journey writing it. And it was the opportunity for me to really connect with who I was then as a child, and as in growing in my faith, who I became through this journey of writing about my story, remembering those conversations that those children had with me.
And what should parents know? Because that can also play a key role in helping prevent any sort of molestation in certain cases.
Definitely prevention, you talk about communication. As a parent of 2 children myself, we started the conversation about sex at an early age. It really began with my son asking, where do babies come from? Very innocent conversation, but that was the open door. And so from the age of 6 and 7 for both of my children, we started with age-appropriate conversations about sex. And then what is the appropriate way and who are the appropriate people to touch you and what's inappropriate as it relates to touching. And these are sensitive subjects and difficult even with your own children. So I would say also communicating with your children that these are difficult topics to talk about as a way to alleviate both you and the child in having the conversation. The other critical piece, I believe, also is emotional literacy. Talking with your children about emotions and teaching them how to both identify words to talk about how they feel as well as why they feel the way they do. And our homes the safe environment for them to also come and talk about both their fears, as well as their successes, their difficulties, as well as the things that they do well, and do our children feel safe to talk about these things, which also gives us opportunity to talk about those sensitive subjects.
Great advice, sir. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad you were able to overcome. Thank you, Cortland.
Thank you very much.
If you would like more information about our guest, you can visit his website at cortlandjones.com.